Okay, welcome everybody to this regular meeting of the Operations Planning Committee for Thursday, March 11th. Hope everybody's doing well today. We'll just jump right in, and I'm sure Steve will join us when he can. So let's start with Duke Deneen, Board of Education.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, everyone. Hoping for another warm day. I feel spring's in the air, and Jamie, when I see the street sweeper out in full force, I know spring is coming.
Yes.
Excited. So a couple things to go over. I'll be as quick as I can with respect to every time. We have been back to school almost 2 weeks now, which is exciting. It's gone really well. In talking to people in other districts, myself and Alan included, people continue to say we have really put a nice plan together. We've executed. We looked at phasing it. We did it. And so people continue to look to us as leaders in terms of how we've done this in a very challenging time. I think the ongoing support from the town, Board of Finance, RTM, our investment in technology has proven, really effective during this time. So we're excited 2 weeks in, back to school. A little tick up in cases this week. Again, we still see some of the cases coming from outside activities and some transmissions within families. We're just continuing to stress for people to be cautious and careful and adhere to the quarantining guidelines. Currently 18 cases and 158 people quarantined, 274 cases total, and 1,982 people quarantined. Currently, it looks like we have 9 staff members quarantined. We continue to do well with substitutes. Alan stressed last night at our Board of Ed meeting, it is just so much better, even with staff out and substitutes, to have our students back in school. So quick update on that. We currently have remote learners at 444. That's down from a high of 649. Various family reasons, health reasons. It does continue to drop. We continue to monitor that and make sure that those remote learners are getting all the support that they need. But again, the technology has proved effective here. We announced last night, Mrs. Summers, our Middlesex Middle School principal, is retiring. She officially submitted her retirement letter. So we will start a search immediately for that replacement. We wish her well. She's been with us for 5 years and has done a great job up at the middle school, and we look forward to the opportunity to bring on a new principal up at the Middlesex Middle School, which continues to be, I think, the biggest middle school in this past week. We celebrated up at the high school, the seniors, 100 days until graduation. So again, the parent-teacher organizations with posters and celebrations. We also, as a board, sent up some sweet treats to the high school and Middlesex for everyone being back in school. Compliments and thanks to our friends at Four Forks. So that was well received. We should set a graduation date shortly. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make sure that we celebrate in all the challenges that we've had, our seniors, and look forward to continuing to work on that. There's even plans for a potential outdoor prom being worked on behind the scenes. So as usual, a lot of stuff, good stuff going on. This past week, we bumped up parents to 2 parents able to attend home sporting events, which is exciting. There are limited number of sporting events coming up around hockey and those type of sports, so parents are excited to be able to attend those games. The ESSER 2 grant, which was about $596,000, we were informed has opened up, so Rich will be starting to submit those expenses shortly. Alan got a little heads up and some information on the American Recovery Act that's been passed and going through, I guess, its final approvals in DC. It looks like our potential take on that could be $1.4 million. That would be over a 3-year period. We do not know the strings attached to that or how it will work effectively, but that's some preliminary data that we got yesterday. Bear with me just a second. We continue to go through the budget process. Thank you for the world's, or maybe the town's shortest meeting, Chairman Zagrodzky and the Board of Finance. I tried to do it last night at the Board of Ed meeting, but I went about an hour and a half over your time. But as always, we appreciate the public comments. I'm sure more will come in over time, but we continue to look forward to working with the Board of Finance, RTM Education, and RTM F&B as we continue to go through the budget process. We also last night announced we're very excited and thankful to the Darien Community Foundation. We received a grant of $213,000 to start a K-12 robotics program, which Dr. Adley is very excited about. This will start in a club-type fashion, but it continues to be part of offerings and opportunities for our students around STEM programming and STEM curriculum. So we're really excited for that. Happy to get some more information to you all. If you're interested, just let me know on that. A big thank you too to Jamie and the staff at Hall, the health staff, district admin, Lisa Kasochi, Dr. Knopf, and especially our teachers and the administration here. We had a great vaccination day last Friday and Saturday. I'm hearing at a high level, over 80% participated in that, a lot of organizing and efforts behind the scenes. So a big thank you to a lot of those folks. The second rounds will be on the Saturday of Easter weekend. We'll do that. Jamie and I have talked frequently about some legislation moving through. I think one we have to stay focused on is the SRO legislation. I've spoken to Alan about that. He stays in touch with his counterparts. I think we have an incredible SRO program here in town. It aligns with what Jamie refers to as policing that I think is incredibly effective. I think over the last year, the SRO has continued to add value to the overall programming, feeling, and ability for students to know there are other people to reach out to. So it's an effective program. It's a program that involves a lot of training and support behind the scenes. I'd love for us to participate in showing other parts of the state how it's done well. I'm sure there's always things we can learn from and improve on, but it is a program that I support, the district supports, and we'll continue to monitor that because I think it's an important component of what we do and how we do it in the district. We moved forward with approving our strategic plan last night. That's been worked on by a group of folks across the district, parents included. So we're excited to move that forward. That will continue to build, dig into that. We also looked last night at kindergarten enrollment. Last year at this time, we stood at about 211 enrollments. We're standing at about 227 right now. There's some ups and downs, some peaks there as we go into the spring season. So I think we'll see that tick up over the next month or so. So we'll keep an eye on that in terms of sections. Just trying to go through my notes here, and I think that's it. I'll pause for any questions. I think that was a laundry list, but a lot of good stuff going on that I wanted to get out there.
Yeah, I do have a question, Duke. You said something about in Shelley's retirement, something about Middlesex is the largest, and I don't know if anybody else heard it. I couldn't hear what is the largest what?
Largest middle school in the state.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Good to know.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Duke. Does anyone have any other questions for Duke?
No, just I'll add in on the SRO. There were two bills. The one eliminating SROs altogether has not gone to a public hearing, probably won't. The other one is contained in a bill that would be a task force to look at the SROs, and I think that's an opportunity to shine a light on how great the program can be. I know a lot of people were deeply concerned about that legislation, the one eliminating SROs, because I think most of us have seen, both in urban and suburban and rural districts, have seen the benefit of school resource officers.
Yeah, any guidance, Terry, and Jamie and I have talked extensively about it, but any guidance where we can proactively add support or help out with that, I think we would be very much interested.
Great. Well, there will be a task force formed, so perhaps you might want to serve on the task force, or also just be in touch with whomever is on the task force on the benefits of school resource officers.
Great. Thank you, Terry.
Thank
So,
you.
Terry, to that point, I don't know who has the ability to get people seated on that task force, but I certainly recommend our police leadership. James Palmieri would be wonderful. You know, I have a feeling that school resource officers are utilized in different ways across different districts, and I think we do have a role model district for what SROs should be and how they positively interact with students and staff. So to the extent that, you know, they're not in the meeting, so I can volunteer them, but that we could get any of our law enforcement staff engaged in that task force, I think it'd be very beneficial for the state.
Great. So noted. Thank you. Great idea.
Hey, Jamie, if I could just add real quickly, I just left a facilities meeting. It's, I think, because it's exciting also, and you and I spoke about it, but there's a facilities meeting finishing up right now, presentation on moving forward with solar on all our school buildings. So more to come on that. Jamie's been generous in offering, and Mike and Alan have spoken to Ed Gentile. So we continue to move forward on that with Ox Ridge coming online in 2 years. We didn't have the opportunity when the town did it with respect to some roof projects we were doing, but we are looking at a solar program for all the school buildings.
Yeah, thanks very much, Duke. I try to jot down the 25-year savings on that, and it looks like it's, you know, well over $2.5 million potentially in utility savings, what's being proposed. So I think that's great. The town has certainly taken advantage of opportunities for solar, and be great for the schools to do that as well. I think I'll just go next to leverage off of a couple things that Duke was talking about. I've been in a number of conversations over this past week with CCM on the American Rescue Plan and how it will affect communities and the state of Connecticut. It sounds like Connecticut is due to get approximately $4.3 billion, 2.6 in direct assistance to the state, and just under 1.6 billion will go directly to cities and towns. For towns that are under 50,000 population, like the town of Darien, our monies will be passed through from the state of Connecticut. The Treasury will send the money to the state, and the state has a certain number of days to get that money to local municipalities. The money will go directly from the Treasury to cities and towns over 50,000 in population. Guidelines have not yet been issued from Treasury on the uses for this funding, but I understand that it's pretty liberal, if you will, in our ability to use the monies. You can't use it to offset pension payments, and you can't use it as a direct offset to lower your taxes. But it can help to restore any revenue losses that you might have incurred as a city or town over the past year. So we're going to look for that guidance. Should be coming out very soon. I think the bill in and of itself has a time limitation on when those funds have to be distributed across the nation. It's either 60 or 90 days. So instructions will be imminent. The one thing that I will just say to our fine chairman of the Board of Finance, I think Darien, I believe, aside from the monies that Duke mentioned, $1.4 million potentially to the Board of Education directly, the town of Darien is estimated to be receiving $2.1 million. And I think that it will deserve some careful conversation on how we would use those monies over the next few years. We can use it for economic development. We may be able to use it as a loan fund for small businesses, and certainly to help offset potentially some of our revenue losses due to COVID. That's really the primary driver of this rescue plan for cities and towns. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to make new commitments with that money that will impact future operating budgets. You know, they were very clear yesterday from Senator Murphy's office that, you know, they do want cities and towns to be mindful of any future budgetary impacts, since these monies are only temporary. Moving on from that, Terry knows this well. You know, our minds are spinning on the legislation that is being proposed up in Hartford right now. Most significant, I believe, for the town of Darien, although there's lots of really important things, are a wide variety of bills that have been introduced pretty much in every committee that exists in Hartford about changes to the zoning enabling legislation and how that would manifest itself here in taking away our town's ability to craft our own regulatory destiny regarding zoning regulations, specifically around transit hubs, our train stations. Within a half mile of our train stations, it's proposed that developers can build 4 units or more of housing as of right, i.e. without any public hearings, within that half-mile radius, 50% of the land within. So if you look at the zoning map for the town of Darien, the zones around our train stations, and there's also a proposal to do the same thing around our Main Street corridor, a quarter mile around our Main Street corridor. We have some of our most dense zones in those areas already, you know, a 1/3 acre, a 1/5 acre. So these proposals would increase by 3 to 5 times the housing density in those areas. Terry and I have talked extensively about this. You know, I don't want to use those quippy words about, you know, one size doesn't fit all, but it is in fact true. And so we're pushing back here in Darien. I'm pushing back against this legislation. It's been wrapped in a package about efforts to desegregate. And really, you know, I'll just be very casual and boil it down for the public. It's a market manipulation. The idea is if you build enough housing, housing prices will fall and become more affordable for those people who cannot afford to live in Darien right now, but may be able to in the future. And that's all well and good for folks that want a low barrier to entry, but it also has rather significant implications to current property values. Number one, neighborhoods, on-street parking, and a variety of other impacts to our town infrastructure, our school infrastructure, pedestrian safety, and I could go on and on. So, you know, we just have to take the opportunity to stand up for what's good and what's not good for the town of Darien. And I will continue to do that, but I want to be very clear. There is a tremendous political imbalance in Hartford right now, and these bills will likely pass. But, you know, like to encourage everyone to get their voice on the record. It's important to do that. And as your first selectman, I will continue to advocate for good policies and against bad policies for the town of Darien.
May I jump, Jamie?
Yes.
May I jump in, because I do have a 9:30 call on the higher education consolidation, and my report today would going to be on the public hearing, which you've just mentioned and so well articulated the lack of rationale. The rationale behind this supposedly is to create more opportunities for families in the urban districts, yet it does nothing to look at the root causes of poverty, and it does nothing to deal with the cities. So it's on many levels. I think there's a great deal of concern. As Jamie mentioned, there's a great deal of passion and a great deal of power behind this, and we all need to be aware of it. Public hearing is this coming Monday. I will be sending out an e-blast with this ability to sign up You have to sign up by 3 o'clock on Sunday, and it's very easy to sign up. Everything's online. You give your testimony virtually, 3 minutes or less. All the details will be in my e-blast. But it is something we all need to be aware of, and does it really solve the problem it purports to solve? So thank you,
Terry,
for allowing me to add that.
do legislators read written testimony that comes to you? Is that
Yes,
as impactful as testifying in person? Because I know with a bill like this, there will likely be 24 hours of testimony on this.
Yes.
So that becomes difficult for many. So if you could just give us some sense of comfort that if we write in, and it doesn't have to be a lot, a couple of sentences, a paragraph, that is equally as impactful.
Very, very good point. Yes, brief is best. Just a couple of bullet points on this, and why you support it or why you don't.
Yes.
We all read it. It's our job. That is our job, is to represent your voice in Hartford.
Perfect.
So, thank you. And I'm sorry to have to leave, but yeah.
Yep. Thanks for posting the instructions on how to make that public comment.
And I'll also, yes, I send it out in an e-blast, and it will also be on my state representative Facebook page. So thank you. And I'll send it out on Twitter too. Started doing that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Terry.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
So just a couple of things. Duke already mentioned the tremendous success that we had in getting all of our school teachers and staff vaccinated. I'm not sure, but I think we were probably one of the first in the state to be able to get that done. We're now vaccinating all of our licensed childcare providers in the town of Darien, which is also wonderful news for kids and parents. And I want to publicly shout out to our health department, our human service department, and the school nurses who have, really created this model collaboration to help the folks in our town. So kudos to all of them. Other COVID-related issues, on March 19th, the governor will be eliminating capacity restrictions on most businesses. However, the distancing requirements and mask wearing requirements still stay in place. So it's a marginal benefit to our local restaurants, but it is a benefit nonetheless, and it certainly shows that we're moving in a positive direction. Today happens to be the 1-year anniversary of the World Health Organization deeming SARS-CoV-2 as a pandemic. So, we've been through a lot this past year, but with vaccines and all of the efforts on the part of the public, we definitely can see light at the end of the tunnel. But I'll double down on what Duke said. It is not a time to let down your guard. Spring's here, be outside. That's a great thing. That will help limit the spread, but we are still seeing cases here in Darien. So please be diligent about your mask wearing, your distancing, and we will be publishing, as we get it, new guidance through the CDC and State Health Department. For those who are fortunate enough to have received their full vaccine doses, you will be able to have a little bit more latitude in gathering with others who've been vaccinated, not distancing and not wearing masks. So certainly more to come on that. We will also have to be discussing any summer activities planned by the town of Darien in light of vaccinations and some of the loosening of restrictions. But as of right now, we are still in a posture of not having any large-scale gatherings for the town of Darien, but we will monitor that on a week-by-week basis. That's really it for me. So I will now turn to John Zagrodzky, unless you have any questions for me.
Hey, thank you, Jamie. That's great. I'm certainly mindful of your point about this American Recovery Act stimulus windfall that we're going to get, and I think we should do everything we can to keep with the spirit of that legislation, which is getting people back on their feet. I very much agree with the notion of trying to avoid taking on expenditures like hiring people that will have costs that will last beyond the delivery of those stimulus funds. But anything we could do to figure out creative and particularly impactful ways to use that money to get some Darien businesses back on their feet, or try to help in some other way, I think is keeping with the spirit of that. I think that's great, but let's definitely give that careful thought and get townwide input and get all our elected officials focused on that. From my standpoint, so we have received the Board of Education and Board of Selectmen budgets, and so the Board of Finance review process is now starting, and we've already had quite a few discussions to get that underway. As far as the short meeting the other night, that was our public hearing where we hear comments from the public. We only had 2 registered speakers, and they were very quick. So yes, I think 9 minutes is a record for a Board of Finance session. And like our flat mill rate increase last year, a record I don't expect to repeat this in this coming year. But anyway, I do appreciate the comments we received. The only thing I'd say about that is that if anybody has further input or wants to make their voice heard on our budget process, we have a number of meetings coming up, which are all posted online, and I'll touch on a few of those in a second. And of course, you can contact the Board of Finance at any time. We'd love to hear from you. In terms of our process, we are continuing with the buddy system that we set up a few years ago to try and involve members of the RTM in our budget review discussions. It's gotten a little out of hand, I guess I would say, in terms of just the number of buddies that we have participating in the process. I think that's terrific in terms of interest from the RTM and our deliberations, but one of the things I don't want to do is turn this into a major bureaucracy or something that creates a lot of extra work, either for us or for the school or town department heads that we interact with. So I think the main message I'd have for anybody who's participating in the budget process is very important that to do your homework before we have a lot of involvement in these discussions. And by that, I mean, take a look at the budget materials that have been provided through OpenGov, but also from the Board of Education. And importantly, make sure you've taken a look at the video presentations that the school and town leaders provided on their budgets. They're pretty comprehensive, and I think you'll find they answer a lot of questions. And so trying to have that done before you have your own questions that I think will be important in terms of keeping this process efficient. In terms of our calendar, the first meeting coming up is the schools tour this Saturday. So that is a tour we have every year where we take a look at the condition of our schools. And this time, and of course, it'll include progress on the Ox Ridge School. But it's a way to take a look at town and Board of Education capital projects and having an upfront look at all that in person. I think it makes a big difference. We've constrained that meeting this year in terms of participation so that we can maintain social distancing. But fortunately, Jim Cameron and his team at TV 79, they're actually going to be, for the first time, taping that session. So you'll have a chance to hear those comments about the capital projects around town directly by video. So I think that's terrific. That meeting is this Saturday, 2 days from now, on the 13th of March at 8 o'clock at the Middlesex School. We then also have our 4 budget sessions that are coming up. I won't go through them in detail, but they're going to be starting on March 16th at 7:30. All of these sessions will be live, and you'll be able to watch them either live or taped. And we will march through the various components of the budget at these 4 sessions before we have a meeting to set the mill rate and then hand the budget off to the RTM for their final appropriation. And that mill rate vote is set for Tuesday, April 6th. So our process is going to move along. I would say that right now, if you take the submitted budgets from the Board of Education and Board of Selectmen, in addition to debt service and everything else, we're looking at about I'd say a mill rate increase of just under 9%, so about 8.8%. Most of the dollar change in the budgets from last year are in capital projects, or not most, but probably 40% of that total. And typically, we will identify some of those projects that are suitable for bonding, so they will come out of the operating budget. So I do expect the mill rate increase to be less, but it is not going to be zero. So I just want to make sure everybody is eyes open about that and aware that we're going to be coming in with a tax increase this year. We'll do our best to try to get that bonding done for those capital projects and try to take as much of that out of the operating budget as possible. But both the Board of Education and Board of Selectmen have submitted thoughtful and reasonable budgets this time, as they always do. And just unfortunately, those have increases this year for a lot of good and also complex reasons. So more to come on our budget review process, but I wanted to just give that quick headline. As for me, I think that is about it. Unless anyone has any questions, that's all from me.
Thank you very much, John. Any questions for JZ?
John, could you just clarify a little bit what you were saying about 9% mill rate increase?
9% mill rate increase. I'm not sure how to make that more stark, but where that comes from.
That's plenty stark.
Sorry?
I say that's plenty stark.
Yeah, keep it. I mean, if you look at just the dollar figures, so we've got about a $12 million increase in sort of what I call amount to raise in terms of taxes. And that's a combination of some lower revenue forecasts, for example, with the parking fund this year, but also with expenditure increases. And the model shows right now about 8.79% increase in the mill rate from 16.33 to 17.76. And like I said, a good part of that, about 4 million, sorry, I'm looking off to the side here to get these numbers in front of me, but net capital increase of about 5.6 million out of the 12 million. So about half of that is going to be, I'm sorry, about 4.4 million of the total increase is capital projects. We may be able to bond a lot of that, in which case that would come out of the operating budget, but the assumption is that those are not bonded right now. So more to come. It's not going to be a 9% increase, but like I said, it won't be zero, but we'll take a good look.
And what you're saying is just if you took everything and didn't do anything, you're up at 9%, and that's sort of like what you got to deal with going forward as you go through your process.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions for John? If not, then Seth will turn it to you for the RTM.
Great. Pretty much routine, the RTM, we have the budget approaching. As John notes, we're heavily teamed up in that process as we are each year. And so for now, just coming up next Monday, we're going to have a couple of informational presentations, one from David Knopf, just talking about COVID and the vaccines. His last presentation at the last meeting was well received. People seem to get a lot out of it, and he's been more than accommodating in agreeing to do it again. And then Wayne Fox is going to talk a little bit about some FOIA questions regarding emails and what email addresses you should or should not be using if you want to protect yourself. The other items are just routine, $9,200 to purchase some concession equipment at Weed and Pear Tree Point beaches, and amending any agreement with the town of Darien so the Connecticut Green Bank collects CPACE tax assessments. It's a routine matter. On the subject of the planning and zoning items which are pending in the state legislature, I do have a letter from Steve Alvani asking for comment from the RTM in some form. We have to work together to figure out how to do that, how we would do it. How do you word a resolution? But I just want to let you know that it's on the table. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Seth. Anyone have questions for Seth? No? Okay, just some final comments from me, and then if anybody else has anything else for this morning, additional business. As we look forward as a town and as a Board of Education, I hope that we will remain mindful, and this is sort of a global comment to the larger public and all of our wonderful nonprofits that are in this space too. You know, our kids are going to need a lot of help. They're going to need help with remediation for school. And I know that the schools will be looking at ways to get kids the support that they need over the summer and beyond. And kids and families need a lot of help in terms of mental wellness and recovery in that respect from the pandemic. there's a lot of difficult stories out there about how people are struggling. And I'm hoping that with spring being here and vaccines being delivered, that that eases up a little bit. But there's no question that kids and families have been traumatized this past year. And there's going to be some lasting impacts. And I hope as a town we can come together to really help nurture our public and get them through all of this in the best way, the healthiest way possible. So, maybe we can keep that top of mind as we look at what we might do with a couple of the dollars that are coming our way from the federal government. And with that, if there's anything else, comments from anybody? All right. If not, then I don't see that do we have some meeting minutes from our prior meeting? Had an opportunity to take a look at those. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay,
So
thank you,
motion.
Seth. Okay, so moved by Seth, seconded by Duke. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, great. Thank you very much. And now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Seth. Seconded by John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks,
great
Jane.
rest of your day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.